Cbeebies Bedtime Story.
Hello, my name is Jodie, and this is Hector the cat. Hector and I have lots of things in common. We both love solving problems, and we both like to sleep. Our story tonight is all about the time Hector was blamed for stealing a pie. It's written by Rachel Deering and illustrated by Chrissy Snelling. Inspector Hector, the crime-solving cat, was ginger and stripy and fluffy and fat. By day he relaxed, sleeping most of the time. But as the sun set, he set out to solve crime. 2 little boys and a dad and a mum loved him and fed him and tickled his tum. They didn't know what went on in his head or what he got up to when they went to bed. One day, last week, Hector took a real knock, a crime in his house. This was all such a shock. A pie had been baked, with fish and with pastry, left out to cool, all golden and tasty. The family went out to see Granny and Pops, and on the way back, they stopped off at the shops. By the time they got home, they were all feeling famished, but to their surprise, the fish pie had vanished. A shout from the kitchen caused Hector to stir as he woke from his dream. Something prickled his fur. Padding into the room, he was met with a glare. Mum was not happy. His eyes met her stare. "Oh, Hector, how awful. You've eaten the pie. Now there's nothing for tea." The boys started to cry. Well, Hector was cross. He'd surely been framed. The pie had been stolen and he had been blamed. It was time to put on his crime-solving cap and find the real villain. Well, after a nap. With a stretch and a yawn, he thought what to do. He looked all around till he found his first clue. The plate was the first thing that needed inspecting. It was time, Hector thought, to do some detecting. Crumbs, he soon spotted, all over the floor, making a path right out of the door. With a twitch of his whiskers and a flick of his tail, he set off at once on his crime-solving trail. Out in the garden, he looked all around. "I'll start here," he thought as he tapped on the mound. Mole had seen nothing. "I'm as blind as a bat, but I did hear some scurrying. Have you spoken to Rat?" With a twitch of his whiskers and a flick of his tail, Hector made a few notes, then continued his trail. Rat didn't know, even though he loved pie. "What about Owl? Could you give her a try?" Owl shook her head. "Oh, I've been sleeping all day. But Squirrel, I think, might have something to say." With a twitch of his whiskers and a flick of his tail, Hector branched out again as he followed the trail. Squirrel said, "Me heck, I may be quite nifty, but I only eat nuts. Toad looks rather shifty." Toad croaked, "Good gracious, I never eat pastry. But I do know that Mouse thinks it's very tasty." With a twitch of his whiskers and a flick of his tail, Hector grew anxious. He just couldn't fail. Mouse was quite nervous.
"That pie sounds delicious. And Hector, I think I saw something suspicious going into your house, a tail and some fur. I thought it was you. It was all just a blur. Then over that wall, disappearing from sight. The blur seemed to vanish. It just didn't seem right."
Hector's tail shook as he started to climb. Was it time to find out who'd committed the crime? Who could believe what he found as he landed? The villain still eating. He'd caught him red-handed. The kitten looked guilty. He stood up and froze. He had crumbs in his whiskers and crumbs on his nose. "My name is Barry. I'm new here next door. I just couldn't believe it, the sight that I saw. A hole made for cats in the side of your door?" I was feeling intrigued, so I slipped in a paw. I smelled that fish pie and I think I forgot that the house wasn't mine. Now I've eaten the lot. Hector sat down. He was nearing exhaustion. Now listen, I'm letting you off with a caution, but stealing is bad and crime never pays. Promise me now that you will mend your ways. Barry agreed. He knew he'd been wrong. He'd go and confess it was him all along. As he popped through the cat flap, the family all knew. Oh, Hector was sorry. Of course it's not you. Dad got in the car and drove off down the street. He was back very soon with a family treat. And as for Barry, he did mend his ways. And now he too sleeps for most of his days. But when night time comes, Barry's tail does a flick. He's now started training as Hector's sidekick. How brilliant that Hector solved the mystery and found a new friend too. It's important to have good friends like that to keep you company through life's little journeys. But now, it's time for you to close your eyes and fall asleep. Good night from me, and night from Hector.